It looks like my project is all set up, and now inside of this workspace directory, I can see a new folder has been created called corp. So it gets named, of course, after the name of our project that we had entered just a moment ago. We're now going to open up our code editor inside of that directory. To save a little bit of time, I did that already. So here's my code editor. I've got the corp directory open. Now I want to start up this project, and I want to access it inside my browser. To do so, we'll open up a terminal. You can use terminal inside of your code editor, and you can of course use the terminal window you were just working with a moment ago. Either one is totally fine. I'm going to use the terminal inside my code editor, just so you can see what I'm doing very easily all on one screen. Once I've navigated to my project directory of corp, I can start up my development server by running npm run dev. After a brief moment or two, we'll get a message stating that our server is up and running on localhost port 3000. I can take that address and visit it inside my browser, and we'll see the default Next.js landing page that looks a little something like this. Okay, that's great. We got our project up and running, and we've got a place so we can write some code. So I think we've taken care of this first problem. So now we're going to move on to our second problem. We need to show different content on the screen based upon the path the user is visiting. Let me explain what I mean by that. When we were looking at these mockups just a moment ago, you might have noticed that we got these 4 different pages. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the way that we decide which page we want to show is, of course, the URL. So if I go to localhost :3000, I want to see the landing page. If I go to /performance, I want to see the performance page, reliability, and scale, all the same kind of thing. So based upon the path that the user is visiting, I want to show a different page, a different component, some different content on the screen. To set up this kind of routing system, we're going to use NextJS's file-based routing system. So let me tell you a little bit about this system and how it works. First, I want you inside of your code editor to take a look at the src app directory. And inside there, I want you to notice a file called page.tsx. Open up that file right away. Once you got that file open, you'll notice that there is a React component inside of here. I'm going to delete all the JSX inside this return statement. So from main right here, all the way to the main at the bottom, I'm going to delete all that. And I'll replace it with a home page like so. I'm also going to clean up the import statement at the top because I'm not using that anymore. I'm then going to save this. And if I flip back over to the browser, I'll immediately notice the text homepage on the screen. You'll also notice that the background is weirdly tiled. Don't worry about that. It's just a little bit of a CSS issue, which we'll fix up in just a moment. Right now, I just want to focus on the fact that we edited this particular file and we saw the content at localhost 3000 change. So let's go into more detail on what this file-based routing system is all about and what we just changed inside of our editor right there. The src app directory inside of our project is a super special folder. We are going to eventually add many different files and folders into this directory. The different files and folders we add inside of here determines what routes exist inside of our application. So in other words, what pages a user can visit. Now here's a little bit more detail. Inside the app directory, we're going to place many different page.tsx files. These files are always going to be called specifically page.tsx. Whenever we add in a page.tsx file inside of the app directory or a folder inside of the app directory, that defines a new route that the user can visit. These page files must always have a default export of a React component. So it might look something like this. Of course, the actual JSX inside might be a little bit different. We can apply names to these components, but the actual name we apply doesn't matter at all. It's really only used for debugging purposes. And when I talk about the name of the component, I'm talking about like home page right there. So whatever you put right there really doesn't make a big difference, only used for debugging purposes. All right, now here's the kind of tricky part. We're going to eventually make many different page files. To determine how we access these different page files inside the browser, we use the name of the folder that they are located in. So in this diagram on the right-hand side, here's my app directory. Inside of that, I've got a page.tsx file located directly inside the app folder. To access or see the component that is defined inside of that page.tsx file, we would go into our browser and go to localhost 3000/. So that's kind of like our homepage. If we want to have a second route added in, say one for our performance page that is accessible whenever a user goes to localhost 3000/performance, here's what we would do. We would make a folder with the name of the route, in this case, performance. And then inside of there, we'll place a page file. So these are both page files. They are both going to define and export React components. And to see that React component on the screen, we're going to go to the appropriate path inside of our browser. We can, of course, deeply nest routes as well. So in this example, I've got the app folder. I've then got a reliability directory. Inside there, I've got a details directory. And then inside there, I've got a page file. So to see this component on the screen, this page.tsx file, I would go to localhost 3000/reliability/details, and that will show that component. So the final URL would look like that right there. Okay, this is just our first taste of file-based routing. The first time you see it, it's a little bit confusing, especially because we're going to eventually realize that there are a lot of tricky little rules and configuration settings that we're going to change around these pages as well. The one thing I do want to mention right away is that we are going to eventually have a tremendous number of page files inside of our app directory. We're going to have a separate page file for every different route that we want to define inside of our project. And that means that keeping track of all these page files is going to be a little bit tricky because they're all going to have the exact same name. They're all going to be called page.tsx. So just keep that in mind that, yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge. We're going to have these identically named files floating around, but it's something that you'll get used to rather quickly.